I've always been a night owl, and I always feel there's something about the stillness of 3 a.m. that used to make me feel focused, almost comforted. The world felt paused, like I could think more clearly when everyone else was asleep. That feeling lasted right up until last Tuesday. I live alone in a 2-story house that already feels too big for one person. During the day, it's manageable, but at night, especially late at night, the empty rooms and dark hallways feel exaggerated, like the house is aware of how empty it is. That night, I was upstairs in my home office, finishing some work. All the light were turned off except the only light that came from my dual monitors, bathing the room in a cold blue glow. Everything outside that room was pitch black. Around 3:15 a.m., I heard the front door open downstairs. The sound was unmistakable, which makes my stomach drop instantly. I knew for a fact that I had locked that door earlier in the night. I sat frozen in my chair, barely breathing, listening as hard as I could. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then I heard footsteps. They weren't heavy or rushed. They weren't clumsy or aggressive. They were soft, steady, and rhythmic. Worse than that, they sounded familiar, uncomfortably familiar. They sounded exactly like my footsteps. I mean how I make a sound when walking on a tile floor. The sound moved across the hardwood floor of the entryway, then into the kitchen. A moment later, I heard the refrigerator door open. The casual normalcy of it made my chest tighten even more. Whoever or whatever was downstairs wasn't hiding. I grabbed the only thing within reach that could be used as a weapon, a heavy metal paperweight from my desk. My hand was slick with sweat as I stepped out of my office and slowly approached the top of the stairs. I leaned forward just enough to peer down into the darkness below. I saw that the kitchen light was on. Its yellow glow spilled across the floor, illuminating the bottom of the staircase. Then I heard humming. My blood ran cold. It was my voice. The tune was fragmented and quiet, but unmistakable. It was Auld Lang Syne, a song I absent-mindedly hummed when I was bored or thinking. I hadn't even realized how often I did it until I was hearing it echoed back to me from the darkness below. "Who's there?" I called out. My voice cracked halfway through the sentence. The humming stopped immediately. The kitchen light flickered once, then twice, and shut off completely. The house fell into total silence again. I stood there gripping the paperweight so hard my knuckles burned, waiting for something or anything to happen. Then a voice rose from the darkness at the bottom of the stairs. "I'm just getting a glass of water, Elias. Before we go further, Elias is my name." The voice didn't just sound like me. It had the exact same tone, the same pacing, even the same tired rasp I get after being awake too long. My heart hammered so hard that I could feel it in my throat. I forced myself to move and reach for the hallway light switch. When I flipped it on, the stairs flooded with light. Standing halfway up the staircase was me. The other me wore my gray hoodie, my glasses, even my posture was almost identical. But the closer I looked, the more wrong it became. Its body was a little bigger than my body, and its eyes, they weren't eyes at all. The eyes were smooth, black pits that reflected the light like polished obsidian. Empty, depthless. It didn't rush me. It didn't move closer. It just stood there, staring up at me, studying me. Then its mouth began to open, not like a normal mouth opening. The skin around it pulled and split, stretching wider than it should have been able to. Its face shifted and warped, bubbling and sliding like melting wax as it tried to rearrange itself, trying to copy the exact expression of terror on my face. "I think I'll stay for a while," it whispered. The voice was wrong now. "It sounds broken, like something forcing sound through a shape that wasn't meant to speak." I ran immediately. I slammed my office door shut, locked it, and shoved my heavy oak desk against it with everything I had. I spent the rest of the night pressed against the far wall, listening as something scratched slowly at the door. All night, it whispered to me. It told me things no one else could know, things I'd never said out loud. When the sun finally came up, the scratching stopped. I moved the desk and opened the door and found the hallway was empty. But in the center of the carpet was a single wet footprint, one that didn't match any human foot. It had 7 toes. Due to this mystery, I moved out that afternoon, and to this day, I always think about what happened that night. I used to work the graveyard shift at a 24-hour car wash on the edge of town. It was the kind of job no one wanted, which is why I got it because the payment for it is huge. The hours were brutal, the pay was barely decent, and most nights were spent completely alone. My main responsibility was watching security monitors and hosing out the bays once the late-night customers were gone. The car wash sat in what locals called a dead zone. There is no nearby houses, no streetlights, only just a narrow access road, the buzzing neon sign above the entrance, and the thick woods pressing in from all sides. During the day, it looked abandoned. At night, it felt isolated in a way that made the darkness seem heavier. It was a rainy Thursday, sometime around 2 a.m., when a battered, rusted out van pulled into Bay 3. The rain tapped steadily against the metal roof as I watched it roll in on the monitor. The van didn't start the wash. It just sat there with the engine idling, and its exhaust smoke curling upward into the harsh fluorescent lights. I watched for a few minutes, expecting someone to step out, but no one did. I told myself it was probably someone resting or killing time, so I went back to my book. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. About 20 minutes later, a sharp metallic sound echoed faintly through the building. I looked back at the monitor. The van's side door was open now. Standing in the center of the bay was a man wearing a bright, yellow rain slicker and a heavy, industrial gas mask. He was holding a high-pressure spray wand. Judging from the look of things, he wasn't washing the van. Instead, he was spraying the concrete floor, slowly walking in a perfect circle around himself. The water formed a clear ring, deliberate and careful, like some kind of ritual. My stomach tightened. After observing for a while, I pressed the intercom button, trying to sound calm. "Sir, the bay is for vehicles only. Please move your van or start the wash." I said those words gently. The man didn't react at first. Then, very slowly, he turned his head toward the security camera. He raised the spray wand, aimed it directly at the lens, and pulled the trigger. The screen erupted into static. That's when fear really set in. I locked the small glass office and grabbed the landline phone but found it dead. I checked my cell phone but it has no service. That wasn't unusual out here, but in that moment, it felt like the world had closed in on me. Through the office window, I saw him walking across the wet asphalt. His boots made a slow, wet slap against the ground. He wasn't coming toward the office. He was heading straight for the power box on the side of the building. Suddenly, the lights shut off instantly. The car wash was swallowed by darkness, except for the faint red glow of the closed sign near the gate. My heart was pounding so hard that it felt like it was shaking my ribs. I ducked under the metal desk and held my breath. The office door rattled. Then came the sound of breaking glass. The man was inside. The smell hit me first, then followed by a sharp mix of bleach and old copper that burned my nose. I heard him humming softly, a nursery rhyme, his breathing rasping loudly inside the gas mask. "I can hear your heart, little bird," he said through the filter. It sounds so fast. The metal spray wand scraped against the concrete floor as he dragged it. Closer, slow, intentional. He stopped directly in front of the desk. I could see his yellow boots inches from my face. He crouched down, and the gas mask filled the gap beneath the desk. The dark lenses stared straight at me. When I'm thinking my life is doomed, then suddenly a headlights flooded the office. A car had pulled into the lot. The man stood up instantly. By the time I scrambled out, he was already gone, disappearing through the back exit into the woods. The police searched the area the next day. They found the yellow rain slicker abandoned deep in the trees. They never found the man, but they did find one thing inside the office, which is a small Polaroid photo lying near the desk. It was a picture of me, sitting in the office, taken from outside the building. The date stamped on the bottom read 2 weeks earlier. He hadn't wandered into the car wash by accident. He had been waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike me. I live on the 22nd floor of a high-rise apartment in the city. It's one of those modern luxury buildings where no one really knows each other. People nod politely in elevators but never talk. Everything is designed to feel safe. Key fobs are made for every door, cameras in every corner, and security guards stationed in the lobby 24 hours a day. On paper, it's secure. In reality, it's only as safe as the people watching the screens. It was around 1:45 a.m. when I decided to take my laundry down the hall. I couldn't sleep, which wasn't unusual for me. Nights were when my mind felt most awake. The laundry room was on my floor, at the far end of a long L-shaped hallway lit by motion sensor lights. As I walked, the lights clicked on ahead of me and faded out behind me in a steady rhythm. I'd walked that hallway hundreds of times and the sound and timing of the lights had become familiar, almost comforting. That night, the rhythm felt wrong. I reached the laundry room, loaded my clothes into a dryer, and waited just long enough to make sure it started. The hum of the machine echoed softly in the empty space. Then I turned around and headed back toward my apartment. When I reached the corner of the hallway and stepped into the long stretch leading to my door, I stopped so suddenly my heart seemed to slam into my chest. At the very end of the hall, standing directly in front of my apartment door, was a tall, thin figure. It wore a tattered red dress that hung loosely from its frame. The fabric torn and frayed as if it had been dragged across concrete, but the shape underneath the dress was wrong. The shoulders were too wide, the arms too long, hanging past where human hands should reach. Its head was slightly tilted, as if listening. What truly terrified me wasn't just the figure. It was the light above it. Every motion sensor light in the hallway glowed the usual sterile white, except for the one directly over the figure. That light pulsed a deep, wet red, slow and steady, like a heartbeat. It looked as if the hallway itself was bleeding. I stood frozen in the darkness at my end of the hall, afraid that even breathing might give me away. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the figure began to move. It didn't walk. It glided forward, smooth and silent, its feet never visibly touching the carpet. As it passed beneath the next motion sensor light, the bulb popped loudly and instantly turned red. Again another light shattered. Each step brought the red glow closer, crawling down the hallway toward me. Panic hit. I turned and ran back toward the laundry room, my pulse roaring in my ears. I grabbed the door handle and pulled it. My keys were still in my apartment, right behind the thing moving toward me, which means I was trapped. Desperate, I pressed myself into a small alcove beside the trash chute. The space was barely wide enough to hide my body. I squeezed my eyes shut, my back pressed flat against the wall, praying silently that it would pass by. The popping lights drew closer. The air grew thick and hot, carrying a stench like burnt hair mixed with sulfur. My skin prickled, and sweat rolled down my spine. Suddenly the light directly outside the alcove turned red. The heat intensified, radiating from just inches away. The figure stopped. It didn't move past me. I could hear it breathing, like a wet, whistling sound, like air being forced through a broken instrument. "I know you're in there, Marcus," it whispered. The voice was layered, distorted, as if many voices were speaking at once through heavy fabric. A long, cold finger brushed against my cheek. It felt like polished marble pulled from a freezer. Against my will, my eyes opened. For a split second, I saw it clearly. It had no face, just a smooth red surface with a single vertical slit down the center, slowly leaking thick black fluid. Then the fire alarm erupted. Sirens screamed. Sprinklers exploded overhead, drenching the hallway in icy water. The red light flickered violently and died, replaced by harsh white emergency strobes. I stumbled out of the alcove, gasping. After getting out, I found that the hallway was empty. Broken glass littered the floor, but every light was white again. Later, security reviewed the footage. The cameras showed me walking into the laundry room, then running into the alcove, screaming at nothing. The hallway was empty the entire time. I still live in that building, and sometimes, late at night, when everything is quiet, I see a faint red glow creeping under my bedroom door from the hallway. I never open it. I just lie still and wait for morning.